Super Smash Bros. Melee is a game that has been played competitively in nearly 20 years. It's a game that has seen the peaks of the highest mountains and walked through the shadows of the valleys. Super Smash Bros. Melee is notoriously difficult and has a skill ceiling far higher than most other games on the market. This difficulty has led to a constantly shifting competitive meta, one that is still being pushed further and further to this day. Super Smash Bros. Melee refuses to die. The community is 100% grassroots, and the lengths that fans have gone to in order to keep the game alive is downright breathtaking. Melee's community has two sides. There are the players, the Mangos, the Hungry Boxes, and the Leffins, who compete at the highest level, stream to an audience in the thousands, and have their faces associated with the best gameplay that Melee has to offer. Then, there are the tournament organizers, the content creators, and the fanatics in the community. The biggest events are put on by guys like Gimmer, Juggle Guy, and Nintendude. Samox produced a documentary that revived and defined a generation of players, and the fundamental building blocks of Melee have been analyzed, scrutinized, and deified by the fanatics. Those who, out of sheer curiosity, decided to take the game apart piece by piece and then put it all back together again, developing programs and hacks to understand what Melee has under the hood. It's this group that we want to focus on today. In this video, we'll be covering Melee's progression from a party game played on CRT TVs to a budding juggernaut in the online era of gaming. This is Project Slippi, and this is the dawn of the Diamond Age of Melee. Before we get into Project Slippi, let's take a quick history lesson about Melee. The game has had its share of up and downs. It's been punctuated by events and moments that have shaped Melee into what it is today. In 2001, Melee was released to the world. In 2004, the competitive scene was picked up by Major League Gaming as a part of its main circuit. For 4 years, Melee was in its golden age, a period which saw rivalries flare, prize money in the thousands, and legitimacy for the entire scene. Unfortunately, this golden age ended in 2008 with the release of Super Smash Bros. Brawl for the Wii. With the community split between two games and tournament attendance at an all-time low, Melee entered its dark age. However, it soon became apparent that the speed, precision, and freedom of movement afforded by Melee was not present in its successor, and many found themselves coming back to the old game, ushering in the era of the Five Gods, which culminated in the EVO donation drive of 2013, where Smashers raised nearly $100,000 to earn a spot on the EVO main stage. This event brought Melee back into the public eye, and, coupled with the release of the Smash Bros. Documentary in October of the same year, the Melee scene exploded into the Platinum Age. Players old and new flocked to the game in droves, and records for tournament attendance and online viewership were broken and broken again.
Dashin's grabbing on Falcon's hair and dying for it.
All right.
Oh no!
So sorry, I can barely speak right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's so intense. I mean,
Oh, nice.
oh wow,
okay,
that was.
Dude, this is the craziest pit fight! Oh! 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 What? Oh! Lord! What the crap?
Nobody gets hit. That could be it.
But as the years went on, interest in Melee started to wane. Top players began to attend tournaments less, and many outright retired. Tournament numbers were starting to go down, and viewership was dropping even at major events.
There is something that's probably a lot of people are asking, and I gotta ask as well, is where is Smash Bros. Melee?
I mean, Melee had a great run at EVO, and it's unfortunately it won't be an official title this year at EVO 2019.
It felt like the game was on its last legs. Then, coming into 2020, a light appeared at the end of the tunnel. Twitch and Smash GG announced the Smash World Tour, which would feature huge prize pools, sponsored events, and more incentive than ever for players to travel to tournaments. Many saw the Smash World Tour as the booster shot that the community needed to get out and play the game again. The community was in a frenzy, whipped up by the prospect of Melee returning to its former glory. But unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic cut the excitement short, and as of the release of this video, no major tournaments have been held in nearly 6 months. Melee tournaments, for years, have been a logistical nightmare. At events, the game is only played on CRT TVs. You know, the big, clunky, staticky ones that make this noise when you start them up. This meant that in order to host a Melee tournament, you either had to have a dozen or so CRTs on hand, or you had to beg people to bring them to your event. Despite the size and inconvenience of the TVs, more often than not, people brought them, lugging them on the bus, safely seatbelting them to the back of their mom's '98 Honda Civic, or even hand-delivering them several blocks from their home to the local game store. The survival of Melee demanded it, and its players obliged. The reason for this? Melee on anything other than a CRT just doesn't quite feel right. But not everyone is happy sticking to the status quo. As a response to Melee's inaccessibility, or out of a response of just being curious, there have been a number of projects developed with the goal of bringing Melee into the modern digital age. The first started in 2003 with the creation of the Dolphin emulator, and Dolphin allows players to run GameCube games on their computers. In 2008, the software became open source, meaning that anyone could download and tinker with the program at their leisure. For Melee, Dolphin was an opportunity for curious gamers to break into the game's code and understand exactly how everything fit together. In the old days, guys like Mewtwo King would go through every single move in the game, attacking and pausing hundreds of times to try and figure out what frame an attack came out on or how far the hitbox extended. With Dolphin, guys like Cardano, Practical Tass, Dan Salvato, and Achilles 1515 were able to completely dismantle the game and churn out cold, hard frame data. Achilles is the godfather of the 20XX training hack pack, which gives players access to tools that help them with L canceling, shield pressure, and understanding the intricacies of the game. Players could fight with collision bubbles visible, they could enter save states to drill certain scenarios, and most importantly, they could have a cool Naruto skin for their favorite character. The possibilities were endless. In 2015, Dan Salvato released 20XX Tournament Edition, which was compatible with GameCube memory cards, meaning that anyone playing on a console with TE could copy it to their memory card and play it at home. Suddenly, the gap between digital and analog was beginning to close. Future iterations of 20XX TE would include UCF, the Universal Controller Fix, which makes things like dashback and shield dropping more consistent across all controllers, and has since been adopted by virtually every major tournament. Building on the work of Achilles, a coder named Uncle Punch developed a training pack where players could practice just about anything. Tech skill, timing, mini-games, whatever needed to be drilled could be practiced in a hyper-focused environment. Ultimately, all of these programs and hack packs were the result of players needing to break down the game into its smallest components in order to gain a competitive edge. Over the years, what was revolutionary in 2015, like shield dropping, is now a staple of pretty much every player. Characters previously thought unviable have been pushed into the limelight, while those thought indomitable have fallen to the wayside. Melee now exists in a world where the tangent lines between hitboxes can mean life or death. Unfortunately, no matter how good the emulator is, it's never quite good enough for Melee players. No legitimate tournament would ever accept Dolphin setups, and very, very few would ever be run using monitors. The GameCube and CRT combo was, and still is, the bread and butter of the Melee purist. But Dolphin has something that GameCube consoles don't: an internet connection. Using a feature called Netplay, players can directly connect to other players via the Dolphin client. The ability to play Melee online prompted the creation of Anther's Ladder, a website where players could find opponents and play friendlies, and even compete in ranked matches. It was a hub for the online Netplay community, and gave birth to a generation of players known as Netplay warriors, newcomers who gained most of their skill through online competition, unlike previous generations who actually had to attend events in order to improve.
Yeah, if you're gonna look at these little landmarks that sort of designate eras in Melee or whatever, I think there was a little miniature one that actually did start when people got access to things like Uncle Punch training and existing like the old school Dolphin net play. I actually even when people started net playing a lot, I actually noticed the community getting better at a much faster rate than before.
Coming to the present day, Netplay has been absolutely necessary in keeping Melee alive during the COVID-19 pandemic. Community leaders like Homemade Waffles, whose Rona Rumble tournaments have kept regions active during quarantine, have done their best to keep the game afloat.
I've known him for a long time, and I feel like he's always looking for a way to, continue to help the scene and make an impact on it. So I think with Rona Rumble, he realized, this is exactly what we need right now. Anyone can tell you, like, fighting games, Smash, they kind of suck without a tournament on the horizon. You need to look forward to that next event where someone's going to try to become a champion. It's the little things. Zayn having the run of his life with Roy, like, that brought so much eyes. And that never would have happened if Brandon didn't put Rona Rumble on.
Unfortunately, there was always one thing that held Netplay back. It just didn't feel like Melee.
I mean, I play other delay-based games too, like Grand Blue Versus is also a delay-based netcode, right? So one of my regular Grand Blue Versus training partners is actually Bomb Soldier, right? Who's a Melee Falco player from back in the day, from Japan. And we play NorCal to Japan with 4 frames of delay, and it actually feels like completely good. Now, if you were to try to play the old delay-based Melee, NorCal to Japan, I don't care how good your internet is, it's gonna feel like you're playing underwater.
On top of this, Dolphin was a little bit complicated to use. Many decided that this was too much work for a subpar product. So while the technology was there, Netplay isn't the be-all end-all in online Melee. But then, on June 22nd, 2020, one announcement would change the course of Melee forever.
This is me matchmaking in rollback Melee with Zayn. Zayn lives in the MDVA in the east of the US. I'm from Sweden and this is over 100 ping.
Dude, it feels so good. That's insane.
And as you can see and hear, it feels amazing. It feels like offline.
2 words. Project Slippi. Okay, 2 more words. Rollback netcode. Let's start by dealing with the first one. Project Slippi is a tool developed by Uncle Punch, Nikki, Metaconstruct, and headed off by Fizzi. Fizzi was instrumental in getting Smash GG up and running, and he wanted to create a tool that pushed Melee analytics to the next level. Project Slippi allows players to record games, upscale streaming resolution by mirroring gameplay into Dolphin, and keeps track of a wide array of statistics, most of which are too complex to keep track of manually. Average punish percent, neutral wins, successful edge guards. In a nutshell, Project Slippi is like the Moneyball of Melee, changing the way we look at the game both as spectators and players alike. It's important to note that in order to create Project Slippi, the developers had to have a deep understanding of the inner workings of Melee. This understanding gave them the insight needed to take it to the next level, which brings us to number 2, rollback netcode. Until June 22nd, Dolphin Netplay used delay-based netcode. To reiterate what Toph has already said, delay-based netcode puts a buffer between what you input and when it actually takes place on screen. Unfortunately, delay-based netcode is susceptible to lag spikes, meaning that any inputs executed during a freeze in the gameplay won't actually register, essentially eating inputs and frustrating the hell out of players. Fizzi's work over a 6-month period required him to completely upend Dolphin's netcode to integrate it with Melee's gameplay, building both from the ground up. Now, rather than eating inputs, there is a safety net where the game will roll back time and catch up with your opponent. This causes slight teleportations, but it's barely noticeable even with high ping. You are always in control of your own character, and it almost feels like you're playing offline.
And with rollback, you can kind of get used to a consistent timing for everything. You don't have to wait for these frame drops or kind of stutter your gameplay around, these frame drops occurring, because it's always going to be basically the same timing, unless you're playing somebody on Wi-Fi. It's always going to be the same timing for everything, and so you just kind of feel like you're actually playing on CRT again, which is phenomenal.
Rollback is easy to set up too, and it's even easier to find an opponent. With built-in matchmaking, finding a partner to play with from the comfort of your own home is almost too easy. The new netcode is so good, in fact, that there's less delay input when playing Melee online than there is when playing Smash Ultimate offline. On top of this, the divide between the 2 main subgroups of the Smash community is starting to wear thin, as top Ultimate players are trying their hand at the 2 decades old title.
So you can look at the Melee directory and you're seeing people like Samsora and people like Tweakstream Melee. They're down to get back into it. They're saying it feels really good. A lot of Ultimate players at the top are interested in Melee now. Even if they don't stay in it competitively forever, they're still exposing Melee to an audience of, you know, their thousands of viewers. And so, yeah, if nothing else, there's just going to be a colossal wave, I think, of new players. And also, you know, for more old school players, I think a lot of us are so much more down to just sit there and grind it because it feels so much better now that, yeah, I think the level of play is going to go up for sure.
With an influx of new players and access to Melee for those all around the world, rollback netplay is going to be a game changer for the entire Melee community. From complete noob to top player, everyone will have access to high-level reps with basically zero lag.
You know, you're already seeing people like Leffen and people who live in regions that aren't as populous as the US in terms of Melee players. This is like a godsend for those guys. You know, Leffen can go and play Zane now, and just he doesn't have to, you know, theory craft the Marth matchup from Sweden and then come to the USA to test his theories once every couple of months or whatever. He can actually just say, hey Zane, let's get some practice in. And actually one of the things that I'm most interested in is to see if people from, like, you know, regions where, you know, historically they haven't been so represented at the top. Like, I'm looking at South America. I think South America is a region where we've seen that when some of those guys get to travel a lot, like, for example, Nun, they have some really heavy hitters that we just don't know about. And Nun talks very highly of his boys back home from Nicaragua. And yeah, I think it's going to be a complete game changer in terms of just the scene as a whole.
If you haven't already, now is the perfect time to download Project Slippi. It's super easy. There's a YouTube tutorial that shows you everything you need to know and how you can get playing. Fizzi is constantly updating the game and adding new features all the time. We'd like to thank Toph for sitting down to talk with us. You can follow him on Twitter and check out his Twitch as well. He's been streaming chess, Grand Blue, and of course, Melee. Let us know in the comments what you think about rollback netplay and what the implications could be for the future of Smash. My name's Jonah, thanks for watching, and welcome to the Diamond Age of Melee.